Good morning. We are live. I'm talking about for season 5 of Pill Method Live. I'm glad that you're here today. And my name is Don Daniel, International, a better way to eliminate debt. And today, folks, we're going to be talking about how you earn every day, but banks take it away. You earn every day, but banks take it away. We're going to tell you the truth about lending and what you have been taught to do to save money, but it actually ends up costing you a lot of money. If you're listening to us on Clubhouse, come to the stage, start asking questions, make your comments. We love to hear from you. All right. So let's go ahead and get started today. I can't wait to dive in to this subject. Okay, folks, we're getting ready to get started here this morning. And today our subject is going to be you earn every day, but banks take it away. We're actually going to be showing some things on the screen so that you will be able to see it. I can't wait to jump right into this thing. So give me some idea. If you're watching us online, or you are listening to us on Clubhouse, give me some idea, whether you talk to us or put it in the chat. What do you know? What do you know? What have you learned that sets you up for financial success when it comes to banking or borrowing money? Tell me, what is it that you have learned along the way? I can't wait to start sharing this with you today. Okay, so let me get my notes up. All right, so we're going to be exposing some huge myths today about how all of this works. So let's start with this. Right now, rates are at 7%. Some are getting 6.5%, and some are looking for the Fed chair today at about I believe it's 1:30 Eastern time to announce what they're planning to do as far as rates are concerned. Now, what everybody's hoping is that they will cut the interest rate by 25 or 50 basis points, which will maybe it will affect mortgage rates and have them come down. So everybody's looking to get a lower interest rate, aren't they? Okay. So let me tell you something. Lower interest rates are not where we should be focused. No, lower interest rates are not where we should be focused. I'm going to show you some things because that's what's in the news right now. Everybody wants a lower interest rate. I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to put something on the screen. If you want to see what we're talking about, you want to go to YouTube, maybe on a secondary device, and maybe you could see these numbers because I'm putting some numbers on the screen as we speak. Right now, I have a 7% mortgage. We're going to put it in at, let me see here. We're going to put it at $400,000. Okay, that is the median home price right now at 7%. And what we're going to see here, folks, let me change my setup here so we can change our banners. All right, there we go. We're going to change our setup there. There we go. That's it. Now, 7% for most folks, they're thinking, I don't want a high interest rate. Why? Because everybody is saying that the interest rate is high, But what they're not doing is teaching us what the numbers actually are. So your payment, your principal and interest payment is $2,661.21. So folks, here's what I need you to know. If you can afford the payment, you can afford this loan. If you can afford the payment, you can afford this loan, even at 7%. In fact, you're better off at 7, and we're going to prove it, than you are at 5 if you're looking to save money and pay it off early. Okay. So I need you to see these numbers because it makes more sense when you see the numbers. So make sure you're going over to YouTube, Facebook, or whatever you have to do, find P.I.L.L method so that you can see these numbers. So I'm going to show you that the total interest paid on this loan is going to be $558,035.60. Already we're finding out that interest rate is a liar. That's number one. Interest rate has always been a liar. Don't make decisions based on interest rate. You make decisions based on interest cost and what you can do about it. The interest cost on this loan, if you keep it for 30 years, is $558,035.60. Now, tell me, folks, why in the world would we ever begin to think that $558,000 is 7% of $400,000 when it is not? We are so focused on interest rate, we don't see what is right in front of us. The total interest cost on this loan, if we keep it for 30 years, is $558,000, which means it's 139.5% of the principal borrowed. So a 7% loan is really 139.5%. So folks, do you want that? Do you want a 139% loan when they're telling you it's 7%? Let me show you what you can do about it. Now, remember this. Control the principal payment and you control the loan. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to go through several points right now. We're busting some myths today. If you take a look at the principal and interest payment, the principal payment is really small, $327.88. And the interest cost on this loan is $2,333.33. That's the amount of interest the bank wants. But does that mean that they get to charge us $2,300 every single month? That is listed here. If they get what they want, folks, I need you to look at this. If we add up all the principal payments for 1 year, that comes to paying this loan down by $4,000. But the interest cost for the entire year is $27,871.29. Let me ask you this question. Should it cost $27,000 or almost $28,000 just to pay this loan down by $4,000? There's something going on here, folks, and it ain't good. I don't care if you can afford this loan. We should not have to pay $28,000 in interest just to pay the loan down by $4,000. Let me show you some things that but most banks won't show you. Okay. So if we let's say we're making our first payment in January here and our second payment here in February, the principal payment is $329.79. So if you make your January payment where $327.88 goes to principal, subtracted from your $400,000, you have $399,672.12 left over. That is your new principal balance. The bank uses this number to figure out how much interest you're going to pay the very next month. So when you take a look at the month end balance, your principal balance, wherever it is, use that to see what you do on the very next line. Keep that in mind. So if I make my January payment here, and then I look at February's principal payment, I'll find out that I don't have to wait till February to give the bank an extra $329.79. If I have it, I can give it to my mortgage company or my bank early. I just made my mortgage payment in January. I see on my amortization schedule that next month they want 329.79. But what if I give that to them early? Let's say I give that to them sometime in January as well. They have to subtract the whole 329.79 at that point. I'm paid down to line 2 on my amortization schedule, which means my next mortgage payment is on line 3. Look at that. Okay. 331.71 and 2,329.50 is my next mortgage payment. What? You mean I get to skip line 2 just for $329.79? So what happens to the $2,331.42 on line 2? What happens to that amount of money? It goes away. You just saved $2,300 in interest. You never have to pay the bank. Why? Because you gave them $329.79 early. That is what's going on here. So I'm doing all of this so that you can see what is really happening and how much of your money is going up in smoke. And there's a reason why. We're going to get into it later on, but I need to lay the groundwork first. So let's take a look at, now this is at 7%. Let me show you what happens at 5%. So we're going to put the same $400,000 loan in here. We're going to change this to 5%. Uh-oh, I hit the wrong button. Let me get rid of this. Okay. All right, we're going to change it to 5%. All right. And our new payment is 2147.29. I need you to focus in on the principal payment. Focus in on the principal payment. It starts out at $480.62. Let's go back to the 7% loan, where your principal payment starts out at $327. Look again, $327 on the 7% loan, $480 on the 5% loan. So if you want to prepay this loan and you make January's payment and you prepay the next principal payment, you have to come up with $482.63 to get rid of one line. Whereas on the 7% loan, you only have to come up with $329.79. Let me make this abundantly clear. If I can prepay $329.79 to get rid of one line of interest, what if I give the bank the next 3 principal payments? $329, $331, $333. What if I do that? Do you know I get rid of the next 3 interest payments as well? $23.31 gone. $23.29 gone. $23.27 gone. I never have to pay that. Folks, that is like $7,000, almost $7,000 in interest eliminated because I prepaid about $1,000. All right, $7,000 in interest gone. Now let me show you what happens with a 5% loan. Look at how much I have to come up with now. Over $1,200, almost $1,300 to do the exact same thing, but my interest payments are smaller, but I have to come up with more cash to do more work. When you lower the interest rate, you make it harder to pay the loan off easier and faster and cheaper when you lower the interest rate. Let me go back to the 7% loan and make this abundantly clear. I need you to take a look at cumulative principal here. Cumulative principal adds up all the principal payments. And we're going to take a look at line 12. I do not, let me ask you, do I have to pay this $4,063.23 in 12 monthly installments? If I have it, I can pay it all at one time. Yes, I don't have to wait. I don't have to give it to them in $300 increments for 12 months. If I have it, I can prepay it on line one. I pay down to line 12 in 1 month. I skip all the interest payments between line 2 and line 12. I never have to pay. This amount of money is going to go to principal anyway. I am in complete control. If I have the money, I can prepay that. And I'm paid down to line 12 on this amortization schedule, not for $27,871.29, but for only $2,333.33. That is a $25,559.62 savings to do the exact same thing. Keep this in mind. When you control the principal payment, you control the loan. Control the principal payment, you control the loan. So that's myth number one. How do we save money on these loans, and why are they set up this way? We're going to get into that. All right. So lower the rate? No, not necessarily. If you can afford the payment, folks, you are going to be better off. It's going to be easier to pay this loan off in 7 to 9 years using the P.I.L.L method system, because you control the principal payment here. And most debts pay off in about 7 to 9 years using our AI system. So watch this. I need you to look at this now. We're going to take a look at shorter terms. What if I understand this part, but Dave Ramsey says if I can get a 15-year loan, I'm better off. In fact, he says, if you can't afford a 15-year mortgage, you can't afford the house. That's what he says. Let me show you something about 15-year loans. All right. So we're going to, let me see here. We're going to keep our 7% loan. Okay. And I'm going to duplicate this tab. All right. And now we're going to change this from a 30-year loan to a 25-year loan. That is 300 payments. Okay. Now, that's a 25-year loan. And the payment is slightly higher, $2,827.72, as opposed to the 30-year loan, which is $2,661.21. So if you're ever in a situation where you need to refinance, and we're going to cover that as well. If you're ever in a situation where you need to refinance and somebody offers you, well, you already have paid off 5 years, why don't you just go ahead and get a 25-year loan? Don't do it. If you need to refinance, go ahead and get a 30-year loan and pay it off in 7. I'm going to show you why you don't ever want anything under a 30-year loan. So here is the 30. Now I need to show you the first interest payment here on the 30-year loan. It's 2333.33. The interest rate, the first interest payment on the 25-year loan is, scroll down, what? 2333.33. It's exactly the same. So let's do this. Well, it's got to be different if I go to 20 years, which is 240 months. Okay. So let's go to 240 months. I'm going to get a 20-year loan instead of a 30-year loan. My payment now is $3,101.20. I'm going through all of these steps because everything we've been taught to save money actually ends up costing us money. Okay? Everything we've been taught costs us money when we're not, because we're not aware of how it all works. Okay? So let me show you what the first interest payment is on the 20-year loan. It is exactly the same thing. And if we go down to a 15-year loan, okay, now we're going to do 180 payments. That's 15 years. I need you to take a look at this payment, though. Look at this. $3,595.31. Dave Ramsey says, if you want to buy this house, get the 15-year mortgage and start making this payment $3,595.31, as opposed to on a 30-year loan where the mortgage payment is only $26.61.21. Let me show you what's going on with this 15-year mortgage. Take a look at this principal payment. Let me get rid of these ads. Okay. Take a look at this principal payment. It's $1,261.91. Look at that. Okay. If you want to prepay and get rid of one line, you have to come up with $1,200, over $1,200 to get rid of one line on a 15-year mortgage. If you want to get rid of one line on a 30-year mortgage at the same interest rate, you only need to come up with $329.79. Let me show you something that is quite interesting. Look at the amount of interest for the first year on this loan that the bank is looking for, $27,871.29. On the 15-year loan, look at this. It's $27,504. It's almost the same. $27,504 as opposed to $27,871. But to get rid of 1 year on the 30-year loan, all I have to do is prepay $4,000 if I want to get rid of 1 year. On a 15-year loan, if I want to get rid of 1 year, I've got to come up with $15,000. Why is Dave Ramsey putting people in a box like this? It is not necessary. You have more options. You have more wiggle room. You have more ability to kill interest on these loans at the higher interest rate and use a longer term. In fact, if you could get a 40-year mortgage, you're better off. Exactly the opposite of what we've been taught. There's a reason for all of this. If you want to see these numbers and you're in Clubhouse, you want to go to YouTube, pull up your computer, your iPad, your other phone, whatever you've got to do, but go to YouTube and look at these numbers. It makes sense when you see the numbers. You can't unsee them. Okay. Let's talk about now. Let's get into another thing that we've been told. If you want to save money, okay, they've told us to lower the interest rate. They've told us, which we found out, now we don't want to do that. Okay. Lowering the interest rate makes it harder. Then they said, lower the term. Well, lowering the term makes it extremely hard because it increases the mortgage payment, that it just becomes crazy. And if you want to prepay, it takes so much more money to save interest. Okay. They've told us to make large down payments on the loan. Large down payments on the loan. So here is that we've got that $400,000 loan here. And what if I wanted to put $100,000 down on this $400,000 loan? I could avoid PMI if I put $100,000 down, and I could have a $300,000 mortgage instead of a $400,000 mortgage. I could do that. Well, let's do it. Let me put it in at $300,000. All right, 300,000, and we'll take a look at it. Now, my payment is $1,995.91, which is quite a bit less, okay, than the $26.61. $26.61 versus 19. So listen, that is a lot, about 700, almost $700 difference. Well, why wouldn't I put $100,000 down if I could lower my payment by $700? Also, take a look at this. The amount of interest that the bank wants on this loan over 30 years is 558,000. On a, if I put 100,000 down, now it's 418,000. Quite a bit of difference. Already the $100,000 looks like, if I put that as a down payment, looks like it's going to save me money. It looks like the better deal, doesn't it? Let me point this out to you. Anything that the banking system gives you or promotes that's supposed to save you money, you need to look at it several different ways and really understand why they would do that. Because if you're saving money, that means they're losing money. And why would they ever do that? Look at this very closely. If I take the $400,000 mortgage, that means I didn't put my $100,000 down. That means I'm going to have the loan. The bank wants $558,000 from me. It also means that I have to pay PMI. Okay. So Don, why would I do that when I could get rid of all of that? Lower payment, lower interest, no PMI. Well, if you get the $400,000 loan and you had $100,000 to put down, don't you still have your $100,000? Don't you still have it? Now, I don't necessarily recommend this. I'm just showing you the math here. If you wanted to, if you were just wanted to put that $100,000 somewhere on this mortgage, never use it as a down payment. Use it as a prepayment, meaning once you close on the loan, you can put $100,000 on principal. I want to show you what happens when you do that. You can start out on a 30-year loan at payment number 1 if you put $100,000 down. You'll start out at payment number 1. Or if you have a $400,000 mortgage instead and use your $100,000 this way. Look at this. I need you to focus in on cumulative principal, everybody. What if you decided I want to put my $100,000 down on the mortgage now with my first payment? I need you to see what happens at cumulative principal. So we're going to go down and look at column 3, and we're going to scroll down till we hit $100,000. Look at this. Look at how much you knock off on this loan. I mean, it's crazy. Instead of starting out on payment number 1, as soon as we get down to 100,000, look at here. We're at 176 payments removed from this loan by putting $100,000 as a prepayment instead of a down payment. I need you to take a look at payment number 180, though. 180 means 15 years. By putting 100,000 prepaid on this loan, you knock off over 14 years off a 30-year mortgage by doing it that way. And look at the amount of interest saved already. $368,000. You never have to pay the bank. But now, what about the PMI? What about the PMI? Well, you do have to pay PMI for 1 month. Because that $100,000 works either way. You can put it as a down payment and eliminate PMI, or you can use it as a prepayment. You're paid down to a $300,000 mortgage anyway. Look at this. You're still at $300,000, but you only have a little over 15 years left on this mortgage instead of 30 years using the same amount of money. These are the things that we're not being told, ladies and gentlemen, and there's a reason why, and we're going to get to this. How is the bank taking money from us by teaching us these things in this way? Now, what about, have you ever, listen, when the interest rates drop, now I'm going to be watching the Fed today at about 1:30, maybe at 2 by the time he gets through talking, making a speech, and he's going to come on about what between 1:30 and 2 p.m. Eastern time and announce what their plans are for the future. And most of the analysts that I've been watching on CNBC really believe there's going to be an interest cut today. Today. So, I'm with them. I'm going to be looking for that. And if they do, and the mortgage rates drop, more people are going to be looking at refinancing out of their 7% loans. I'm telling you, if you can afford the payment, you're better off staying right where you are in this mortgage. And not only can you pay off your mortgage in 7 to 9 years, but all of your debt. That's your mortgage, that's your credit cards, that's your student loans, that's your car loans, that's everything. Because the key component here is not how much you owe. It's not even the interest rate. It's the interest cost on your loans and what position you need to be in so that you can save the most interest with the money you already make. You don't need more money to get out of debt. You need to pay less interest, and you need to understand how all of this works so you can pay a lot less interest. And we need to do the exact opposite of what we've been taught. If you're here in Clubhouse and you want to come up to the stage and ask some questions or make a comment, please do raise your hand and we'll bring you up. All right. So I need you also, folks, to take a look at this. We've talked about lowering the rates. We talked about shortening the terms. We talked about big down payments. All of these things we've been taught. Haven't we, Alma? All right. Put something in the chat. Alma, have you heard that? Shonda, have you heard that? Paulo, have you heard that? Lower the interest rates, buy it down, get a shorter term, make a big down payment. Okay. Now, what about refinancing? Listen, have you ever heard that if you have a bunch of consumer debt? Now, here's what I'm saying. Slim B on watching us on YouTube says 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Okay, there it is. Let me put it up on the screen. Thank you, sir. 2:30 p.m. Eastern time is the Fed news conference. 2 p.m. is the rate announcement. Thank you so very much, sir. I appreciate you for that. Okay, so now here's what's going on, ladies and gentlemen. Everything that we've ever been taught works backwards against us because most people do not understand how an amortization schedule actually works. So the average family has 13 different debts. The average family has 13 different debts. And they're paying 35 to 39% of their income on interest alone. That's a lot. I need you to understand this. If you make more money, the fact that you're paying 35 to 39% of your income on interest feels less impactful if you make a lot of money. If you make a lot of money, then paying your bills becomes easy. And you may not even think about the extra interest you're paying because you make a lot of money. I'm going to get deeper into that, where we think people who are in dire straits, they make less money, and there's a reason why they make less money. And if they're making less money, and they have these interest rates, and they have, it's a problem with them. They have a problem. I don't have a problem if I make more money. I'm going to show you some things that's going to blow that kind of thinking right out of the water today. So let's take a look at, you need to understand that this is the biggest transfer of wealth since 1936. The system we're in now is transferring our wealth to the uber rich. I don't care how much money you make. You can be making 6 or even 7 figures a year in your job. But we are here to make the uber rich even more rich. The whole system is set up to siphon off our wealth and give it to them. Even though we're making good money, we have black cards, we can go on vacation, we we can fly anywhere in the world anytime we want. I live in a great neighborhood and my kids go to great schools. I'm even a member of the country club. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're not part of that 1%. Ladies and gentlemen, your goal is to transfer your wealth to them. And I'm going to get into that a little deeper in just a few minutes. So it doesn't matter if you're on the lower rung of the economic ladder or if you're at the higher rungs. We all serve the same purpose. Let's talk about it. Okay. Let's talk about refinancing. Let's talk about refinancing to roll in your high interest loans into your mortgage. If you do that, what really happens? So let's say I have this 7% loan, okay? And I have it for, I had it for 5 years, okay? 7% loan. I didn't know anything about the P.I.L.L method. I had this for 5 years, and here's where I am. I paid it down by $23,000, okay? Paid it down by $23,000. I need you to see here. I just paid out $136,000 in interest to pay this loan down by $23,000 because I didn't know about interest cancellation and how powerful it was. And now the interest rates are going to drop to, let's say they drop to about 5%. And now I want to refinance. And because my property has increased in value, I now want to tap my equity to pay off $40,000 worth of what I call high interest loans. I'm going to roll that into my mortgage. I'm going to show you what happens when you do. How you doing, Charles? I'm glad you're here today. If you want to see what we're talking about, the numbers are very important. Pull out your computer or your iPad or tablet or something and go to YouTube and watch us there. Okay? Watch these numbers. So what we're going to do is take this amount here, this $376,000, because that's what we owe now, okay? And we're going to refinance this loan to 5%. So I'm going to copy this. We're going to put it into our amortization schedule here. It's how much we owe. Paste it in there. Take out the comma, okay? So I've got $376,000 that I owe right now. Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to pull up my calculator here to make sure the numbers stay right. Okay. Now, if you want to do some of this yourself, go to Brett Whistle. This is the website I'm using. This is not my program. This is not what we use to eliminate interest. It's not about using this. How we eliminate the maximum amount of interest is using an AI system that guides you like financial GPS that tells you how much money to move, what month to move it in, what day of the month to move it on, which loan to attack to kill the maximum amount of interest that's mathematically possible for you. That's what we use. It's called the opportunity cost calculator. This is an amortization calculator that you can find online. The guy's name is Brett Whistle, BRETWHISSEL. I use this for teaching purposes only. Okay. There's a lot more to this than meets the eye. Believe me when I tell you. Okay. So now we're down to 376,000. Okay. Of 526.41. And now let's add that to our calculator. Okay. 376,526.41. And we're going to add to it $40,000. Okay. Now, let me see here. Delete that. And it equals, all right, 416,526.41, but we're going to put it in at 5%. So let's put this in and put this on my other screen here. Okay. 416,526.41. All right. And I'm going to lower the interest rate to 5. When I lower the interest rate to 5, over 90% of all refinances, they give you a new 30-year loan. That is really what lowers the payment. So let's do this. And let's understand this. If you've been in this loan for 5 years and you refinance to roll in your higher interest debt, okay, and they give you a new 30-year loan, doesn't that make this a 35-year mortgage now? Okay. Most people never pay off their mortgage for this reason. Every 5 to 7 years, Americans refinance their loans. And they get a new 30-year loan each time they do it, either to get a lower payment or lower interest rate. They keep chasing the lower interest rate, but the bank says, I'm going to give you a new 30-year loan, so you'll never catch up. Please watch out for that. Okay, now we're at 416,526. Oh, there's closing costs on this. Let's just add another $10,000 to make it easy. So instead of 416,000, it's 426,000. All right. And our new payment is $22.89. It's still less than our original payment of $26.61. So we're saving money on the mortgage. And if we roll all of that debt into the mortgage, that could reduce how much we have going out by as much as $1,000 in minimum payments we don't have to make anymore. Okay. Somewhere between $500 and $1,000. Okay. So we're saving all the way around. I need you to look at this and look at it closely. Look at this and look at it closely. I just refinanced this thing and it cost me $10,000. Okay. Cost me $10,000 to refinance it. I need you to see this because here's where we were. We had paid this loan down to $376,526.41. I want to show you how much it's going to cost in interest to get it back to $376,526 the very time you refinanced it. How long, and how much it's going to cost you to get it back to here. This is key. Okay. Now, I remember it cost me $10,000 to close on this, closing costs. Let's take a look at the first $10,000. Okay. In the first year, on the 5% loan, okay, I'm refinancing it now. I just refinanced it to 5%. And I rolled in $40,000 worth of interest debt, high interest. And I'm thinking, at 5%, I'm way better off instead of my 27 or even my 30% credit cards that I have in here. Okay. So watch this. In the first year, I paid this loan down by $6,000. I haven't even paid off. See, the $10,000 in closing costs was rolled into the loan. In fact, what happened is you borrowed the $10,000 to get the lower payments. You borrowed the $10,000 to close on the loan. You borrowed the $10,000 in order to roll your $40,000 of debt into the mortgage. You borrowed the $10,000. So we have to pay it back. Okay. But at 5%, you're thinking, I'm okay with that. But in the first year, you paid the loan down by $6,292.87, 21 grand in interest on that. $21,000 interest already on the $10,000 rolled into that, and you haven't even paid it off yet. Okay. By the time you pay off the $10,000, you're into this thing 19 months. And it costs $33,000, $33,000 in interest to borrow 10 grand. By the time you pay off the whole 40,000 and we add it to this whole thing, you get the $10,000. You have the $10,000 in closing costs plus the $40,000 worth of debt. By the time we pay off that $50,000, let me scroll this down to 50 grand right here. It's going to take almost, let me see here. Let's see, 5 years is 60 months. That's 6 years, 7 years. It's going to take almost 7 years to pay off the $50,000. And how much interest did you pay on that? $139,000. Let's just call it $140,000. $140,000 in interest. So if you borrow $10 and you pay back the $10 and another $10 in interest, folks, isn't that 100% interest? I borrowed 10, I paid back 10 plus another $10 in interest. That's 100% interest. Doesn't matter if I call it 5%. Doesn't matter. Okay. Put your comments. If you're watching us, put your comments in the comment section. Okay. Listen, Daryl, that's exactly right. Daryl, what are you saying here? Wow, this is how banks keep you in those high interest rates. Almost never. Listen, you never get out. You never get out if you don't know how it all works. So now, let me show you. I just lowered the interest rate to 5%, thinking I was doing a great thing. But if you borrow $50,000, ladies and gentlemen, and you pay it back and you pay $50,000 in interest, isn't that 100% interest? If I borrow $50,000 and I pay back $100,000 in interest, isn't that 200% interest? If I borrow $50,000 and I pay it back and I pay $140,000 in interest, isn't that 240% interest? So folks, this is a person with perfect credit and they just paid 240% interest, thinking it was 5% interest. This is what's going on. And there's a reason behind it. I haven't even gotten to the reason yet, but I'm doing this, folks, so that you can see everything we've been taught is incorrect. Quincy, what do you have to say, Quincy? Quincy J says, wow. That's all he got to say. Wow. Let's put that on the screen. Quincy is watching us on YouTube this morning. Thank you, Quincy, for being here. So, folks, we went over lower the interest rates. No, don't lower the interest rates. That doesn't work for us. Shorter terms, that doesn't work. That works for the bank. Big down payments actually work for the bank. Refinancing, okay, and rolling in your high interest debt into these loans favors the bank. You went from paying 15 or 27% on your credit card to 240%. And no one at the bank is telling you this. They're telling you, oh, we're going to save you money because Now you have more disposable cash at the end of the month. You have lower payments. Yeah, that's what you want. You want lower payments, and you want to feel like you are that because you paid off these credit cards, you have some breathing room now. Okay. Do you know what happens to 9 out of 10 people who pay off those credit cards with their mortgage money? Within 5 years, they charge them right back up because it doesn't change their behavior. And then they do it again 5 to 7 years later. Mercy. That's what's going on here, folks. Now, I want to show you something that I've never shown anybody else before. I want to show you something. Banks don't care if you're poor or if you're rich. And the rich pay the same amount as the poor. What? The rich pay the same amount as the poor in terms of percentages, and that's what the bank looks for. Let me tell you a little story here. Let me tell you a little story, and then I'll get into tell you why that is. Okay, I'm going to tell you why that is. Let me change this up for a little bit. Okay, all right. And if you want to know more about what we're doing here, folks, let me put this on the screen. Okay, put our banners on the screen here, and there you go. All right. If you want to know how you can save money, if you want to know how you can get out of debt in about 7 to 9 years, go to ceodon.com and click on the button, get a savings and earnings report. It's free. It's free. You can know the month, day, and year you can be debt free. All right. Go to ceodon.com. It's crawling across the screen right now. And you can find the button that says get a savings and earnings report. Now, I need you to focus in on what I'm getting ready to say and the story I want to share with you. Okay. So let me take this off the screen for now. All right. There we go. Here. There we are. All right. So if you want to know why the bank is doing this, why the interest rates are the way they are, why amortization is the way that it is because it doesn't matter. It's the percentages that make money for the bank. They love the percentages. That's where they make their money. How did I learn that? My barber taught me this. Tommy Henry, back in Battle Creek, Michigan, years ago. Tommy, this guy, he took, he had this little barber shop on Michigan Avenue. It's still there. I just came back from Battle Creek not too long ago. That's where I grew up. And the barber shop is still there. He bought rental property with his proceeds from his barber shop. Years ago, Tommy is the first person I knew that had a payphone, his own payphone, not something from the phone company. He bought a phone, which was a payphone, and we had to pay, that's when everybody had landlines. We had to pay to use the phone. He said, let me take Ma Bell's payphone out of here. Let me put my own payphone in. He had candy machines. He had a soda machine in there. We call it pop machine in there. He had other barbers in there that were renting chairs, and he had a service for them where he would wash their towels, and they paid for that as well. So he had several things going on in that barber shop. All right. And I love the pinball machine. I played that pinball machine every single time I was there, and it made money. So he asked me one time, I'm sitting in his chair. He says, Don, what makes the most money in my barbershop? What makes the most money? And so I said, I don't know. You got a lot going on here. He said, guess. Go ahead and guess. I said, well, the pop machine. Okay. Because you buy it at a lesser amount, and you sell it for, you sell it for more. He says, nope, it's not the pop machine. It's the gumball machine. The gumball machine. I said, they only cost a quarter. He says, no, but they only cost me 2 cents. 2 cents each. And we pay a quarter for it. That's when I knew. That's when it hit me. It's the percentages that make the difference. It's the percentages. So if I'm poor, I have a smaller mortgage. And those who are richer may be looking at the poorer people and saying to themselves, the reason why you're poor is because of whatever. Maybe you didn't get the education. Maybe you dropped out of school. There's a lot of things that the richer tell themselves about the situation. Maybe, just maybe, you're from the wrong side of the tracks. I don't know. But what happens is we tell ourselves that if you make more money, you tell yourself that you separate yourself from those who are poorer, who live in different neighborhoods, who have smaller mortgages. And the reason that is a whole host of reasons, but they're not your reasons. So what we're told is if they make more money, if they had better education, they could do more things. They could put their kids in better schools. There's a whole lot of advantages for living where I live and making the kind of money that I make. There's a lot of advantages to that, and they don't have those advantages. So when it comes to paying interest, I don't care if I make a lot of money. Let me show you something here, ladies and gentlemen, about percentages. We're going to put this right back on the screen. And if you're not looking at this, if you're in Clubhouse and you're not looking at this, you need to see this, because this is the very first time I've done this example. Now, a lot of things come to me. Now, the reason why they come to me this way is because I have autism spectrum disorder. When I look at something, I see things in pictures and patterns. So every now and then a new idea comes to me. Why? Not because I purposely sit down and try to work it out. I really do think that God shares this with me so I can share it with you. Now, why does he share it with me? Because I can't claim, because I'm poor at math. Okay. I was always poor at math, and I didn't do well in school. And so why share it with me is because I can't claim ownership. I can't say that it's because that Don's a genius or that he's smart. What happens is that I have something that helps me to see things, and I can figure out puzzles a lot better than some. And so these ideas come to me, and I'm just sharing it with you. Okay. It is not that I am a genius when it comes to math. I'm just good at puzzles. Okay. So let me show you something here. All right. And it just came to me yesterday. All right. As I was on my walk listening to a book. All right. So I need to share this with you. So let me get rid of some of these other things here. Okay. All right. So I'm going to put in a $200,000 mortgage. Okay. $200,000 mortgage at 7%. Okay. There we go. $200,000. Oh, that's 20,000. Sorry. Put another zero in there. Okay. 20,000 at 7%. There we go. The payment is $1,330.60. And we're going to duplicate this tab. Okay. Now so this is somebody who lives on the in the suburb who has they make more money. All right. So they can get their house is $700,000 at 7%. They make more money and they can afford it. So When people hear about the P.I.L.L method and how it saves them interest, people who make more money don't really worry about that, because people who make less money need to worry about all the interest they're paying. People who make more money have more disposable income. They're going on vacation. They're driving what they want to drive. They go where they want to go. They have high limits on their credit cards. They pay all their bills every month. It's not a problem for them. So when they hear interest cancellation or how to pay off your debt faster and easier, somehow they think, because listen, I got this idea because I was walking down the street here in Huntsville, Alabama. At the time, we were running a lot of television commercials, and somebody recognized me, and he said, the P.I.L.L method. And he looked to his wife and said, listen, there's the P.I.L.L method guy. That's the P.I.L.L method guy. And I said, yeah. And I said, great. He says, I've seen you on TV. I said, have you given us a call yet? He says, we don't need to. We're in good shape. We make plenty of money. That's what they told me. What they didn't know was this, and it didn't dawn on me. They told me that a year or two ago, and it didn't dawn on me what they were telling me until yesterday, and now I'm going to share it with you. So let's put this back on the screen. There we go. And there it is, okay? $700,000, all right? There's a $700,000 mortgage. And let me see here. Okay, 700,000, and I don't want that. There we go. And a $200,000 mortgage, both at 7%. There we go. I want to show you something that's very interesting. Remember the story about the percentages, okay? So $200,000 at 7%. Let me show you what the bank is really doing, not just to people who are maybe on the lower rung of the economic ladder, and they make a difference to the people who are on the higher rung of the economic ladder. Because they make more money, they have more disposable income, and they don't feel it as much as people who are on the lower economic end, but the bank doesn't care. And I'm going to show you why they don't care. All right. So we're going to calculate that. And the first interest payment on this loan, get rid of this ad. First interest payment on this loan is $1,666.67. Okay. How much goes to principal? $163.93. Now, banks don't care what your payment is. They only care what their cut is. What? How much of the money that you pay goes to them? What is the amount in percentages? What is the amount of interest that goes to them in terms of percentage? That's where they make their money. Okay. So if I'm looking at this loan, and I love this if I'm the bank, okay, they just made a payment of $1,330.60, but only $163 of that counts to pay down the loan. I get to keep the rest. The bank gets to keep the rest. Let's take a look and see what that percentage is. Let me put my calculator on the screen. So here it is, ladies and gentlemen. I need you all to pray for me, because this season in the P.I.L.L method, we're going to be exposing more and more and more of the truth behind these loans, and how AI is going to do all the math to get you out. We're focusing on the truth, and we're focusing on AI. AI meets finance and makes it a level playing field with you and the banks. You're going to learn how to borrow money at a discount, 75% off, 75 to 80% off, without changing your budget, without changing your lifestyle. No matter how much money you make, you want to know what I'm getting ready to show you right now. Okay, so let's put in the first interest payment, which is $1,166.67. When we divide that by our regular payment, okay, which is 1330.60, we're going to divide it by $1,330.60 equals, I did it wrong. Sorry. Let me do it again. Sorry, I did something wrong. Okay. So we have interest payment. Okay, $1,166.67 divided by $1,330.60 equals 0.876 or 87%. 0.8767994. That's what you get. Now, how do we understand that? Every dollar this family who has the $200,000 mortgage at 7%, every dollar they put towards their mortgage, 88 cents out of every dollar goes to interest. 88 cents out of every dollar goes to interest. And they're paying off their mortgage with 12 cents out of every dollar. How fair is that? And the family on the other side of town, and they're hearing all this economic news, and what they're being told is there's something wrong with the folks over on the other side of town. They didn't do something right. Something is wrong with their finances. Something's wrong with their thinking. And so I don't have to worry about it because I make more money, and my 7%, I don't care about that because I can still put money away for retirement. My kids are going to college. I can pay cash for their college. Listen, all sorts of things are going on because I have higher income. But let me show you something about that. So we're going to take a look at now. Now, remember, let me write this down. Okay. We have the poorer family is paying 87%. I got to get a pen that writes. Look at this. Okay. This is 0.876 or 88%. 876,794. All right. Now, let's take a look at this loan. This is the $700,000 mortgage across town at 7%. All right. Let me make sure I got this payment in here correctly. Okay. The payment is $4,657.12, and they can make that easily. They make it easily. No problems at all because we make more money. All right. But when we take a look at their amortization, $4,000 goes to interest and $573.79 goes to principal. Let's do the same math calculation and see what happens. So their first interest payment, okay, let me pull this up here. All right, the summary. So we're going to put this back on the screen. Their first interest payment on this loan is $4,083.33. I'm trying to show you now the genius of the banking system and how much money they make and how they make us think and feel about our money and their money, our money and their money. So if we feel better about it, we won't care what they're doing to us. Okay, $4,083.33, and we're going to divide it by the total payment of $46.5712. Divided by 46.5712 equals 8.8767. Look at that. Even the rich people who make a lot of money, the richer people, their payment is still 88% of their payment still goes to the bank. This is the evil genius behind the banking system. Rich, poor, or in between, middle class, whatever, the percentages are still the same. What do you guys think about that? If I'm rich, if I'm richer, if I'm making more money, the average family still has 13 different debts. So whether I have a lot of money or I have a little money, I still use credit. Okay. We still have 2 cars. We still have student loans. Okay. We still have a mortgage, or maybe even 2. So we still have a lot of debt. But if I make a lot of money, if I'm a high 6-figure earner, or even a low 7-figure earner, I can easily afford to pay my bills. So the bank looks at me as a natural resource, whether I'm poor, whether I'm middle class, or whether I'm a Henry, high earner, not rich yet. Okay? So it doesn't matter. The only ones that matter are the ones who are at the top of the food chain, who we're paying our interest to, and they're getting richer and richer by the day. But if you have a lot of money, you don't feel it. Therefore, you don't care. You see, what you don't measure, you don't miss. You don't miss what you don't measure. And we're taught not to measure. So this person never even occurred to them that 88% of their payment for their mortgage goes to interest. 88 cents out of every dollar the bank keeps. And they're paying off their mortgage on their side of town with 12 cents out of every dollar. It never even occurred to them. And the bank has set it up that way. So nobody cares about that. They just care about interest rate. They just care about payments. They just care about the money that they make. They care about the position they put themselves in through their education. They think about a lot of different things, but what they're not thinking about is how much of their money goes to interest, making other people wealthy. And here's the main thing, folks. It is not the extra interest that's the problem. It has never been the problem. You know what the real problem is? If you're paying an extra $200,000 to $300,000 in interest you don't need to pay, that's money you can't invest in your families. You can't invest it if you've spent it. So those of you who are taking longer to get to building generational wealth for you and your family, it's because of this. It is not because of taxes. You're going to pay far more interest than you'll ever pay in taxes. Listen, folks, this is a hidden truth that we are exposing this week on P.I.L.L Method Live, that you are a gold mine of sorts, okay? Plutocrats, people who are uber rich, use us as their own personal gold mines. You labor, whether rich or poor, you labor, Your labor is turned into money. And then you take that money, you take that gold, okay, and you spend it at the company store. That company store may be, at the Bentley store. I drive a Bentley. All right. The company store may be, you go to the higher end malls, and you have to go behind the velvet rope just to get into this particular store. Okay. You can shop there. Other people can't shop there. You take your gold, and you spend it at the company store, wherever. I'm telling you, but you're making other people rich by not paying attention to how much interest you're paying. And it takes away from your family, because if you could take that money, let's say you're a real estate investor, big time real estate investor. Do you realize how much interest you're paying on your loans that you do not have to pay? And you're building up your wealth. And I'm not saying you're not doing a great job at it. You're doing a fantastic job. You are doing well at managing your money, whether you are on the lower economic rung or you're on the higher economic run. You're doing fantastic managing your money because you're following the rules that the banking system has set up. But what you're not paying attention to is your interest consumption each month. I want you to take a look at just pull your bills out after this show. Pull your bills out, take a look at how much interest you're paying on your loans, just the interest portion, and add it up and do the math. If you don't know how to do the math, go to Google and just explain it, or go to ChatGPT and explain it. All right. I make $7,000 a month, and my interest payments per month add up to this. Then you can ask your AI system, whatever you're using, how much of my income, what is the percentage of my income that I'm paying in interest? And when you put it all in, the average family pays 35 to 39% of their income on interest alone. That is what's going on. You see, if we are the raw materials, we turn our work, our labor into gold, and the banking system siphons off the gold. Okay, somebody else has made a comment here. Let me pull that up. All right. Opal, who is watching us on YouTube, calls it robbery. Okay. Listen, Opal, I don't call it robbery. I call it business. What we're promoting here is education so that you now can do the same thing. You can borrow money at a discount. You can borrow it at 70 to 85% off. You don't have to let the bank keep taking it. You know better now. Okay. You can get on our coaching program. You can use our opportunity cost calculator that is designed to beat the bank at their own game. You can do that as well. I need you to understand this. There's a psychology trap that's being promoted here. Okay. What you think saves you money? Your credit score, your low rates, your big down payments actually lock you into a system where you're actually paying more interest than you should. But because you have a high credit score, because you have lower interest rates, because you have big down payments, it is that very reason that you're doing all of that. It is actually setting you up for financial failure in terms of how much money you could have to invest. You see, if a bank takes from me, okay, if they're taking from me 88% of my money, but I still have a lot of money left, I don't really care. I'm just looking at how much money I have left and how much I have to spend. That's what I'm looking at. That's the psychological trap. I'm not looking at how much I'm paying over here. I'm looking at my bank account, how much is in my bank, how much is in my 401k, how much is in my IRA, how much is in my Roth, how much is, listen, how much is in my investment account. Uh, you know, um, that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at what's left. I'm not looking at how much I'm losing each month in interest. That's the psychological trap. So, what are we given? We're given the debt snowball. We're given the avalanche method. We're giving biweekly payments. Um, they don't optimize your interest savings. Okay. What's wrong with all of this? Okay. What is our solution to all of this? Our solution, ladies and gentlemen, is finding out how I can leverage the bank's money. And when I can leverage the bank's money and pay a lot less interest, let me put some other things on the screen here while I'm talking to you. I'm going to take this off. Okay. Let me take this down. Let me make a change here. Okay. And I'm going to put some other things on the screen. I'm going to put that one on. All right. We're going to put this one. Do I need this one? Hold on. Let me take a look at this first. Nope. I don't want that one. Okay. But I do want, okay, so we're going to put this on. I'm going to show you some things here. How thinking about, the P.I.L.L method can actually end up helping you. Okay. So let me open these up. Okay. Now, I want you all to realize that what if, when it's all said and done, if you're not changing your budget, you're making the same amount of money, right? But you're paying less interest and you're not using more of your money to throw at the debt. You see, we've been taught the way to get out of debt is to restrict yourself on how much fun you can have, restrict yourself on how many vacations you can have, restrict yourself on the type of car that you can drive, and then take that, all of that money and throw it at the debt and keep throwing it at the debt until you're out of debt. Wrong way to do it. Wrong way to do it. The way you want to do it is, how can I position myself to pay the bank less interest? So more of the money I'm already paying to the bank goes to principal so I can get out of debt faster. And that leaves more money for education. That leaves more money for investment. That leaves more money for vacation. That leaves more money for going out to eat. That leaves more money to do the things that make life worth living, to be enjoyable. That leaves more money for contributing to my church and charities. That leaves more money to do other things when I'm paying less interest on the loans that I already have. I can use the loans that I already have to build fantastic wealth. Let me show you. Let me stop talking about it. And let me put this on the screen. Okay. Here's one example. Okay. This family has $390,000 in mortgage debt, $7,000 in other loans, $18,000 in credit card debt, $416,000 in debt. The bank wanted $163,000 in interest. But using this system, they're only going to pay $41,000 in interest. What? And they don't need more money. You see, the key to getting out of debt is not coming up with more money, ladies and gentlemen. The key to getting out of debt is managing the system that they've given us. So you don't have to pay all of that interest. If you can pay less interest, then you get out of debt cheaper and faster. So it's not about how to pay off the debt fast, ladies and gentlemen, it's how to pay off the debt cheap. That's what you want to know. So instead of paying 163,000, they're only going to pay 41,000. Let me show you what they would need. What interest rate would they need from the bank to pay only $41,638 in interest instead of the $163,653 that the bank wants? They would need to have 0.64% interest rate. That's called the effective interest rate. When you look at how much interest you are actually going to pay, as opposed to the amount of interest that the bank wants you to pay. You are now in complete control. If you had a system, ladies and gentlemen, that says, here's how much money to move, here's where to move it, here's how much to save, here's when you're going to attack the debt with this amount of money and no more, you're going to pay $41,000 in interest instead of $163,000. And guess what's a part of your budget? You're going to tell this system, this is how much I want to spend on me and my family each and every month, so we don't feel as if we're just working to pay bills. Oh my goodness. Folks, we're going to be coming up very soon. I'm going to be announcing our 5-day challenge. We're having a 5-day challenge where you're going to be spending time with me for 5 whole days. And we're going to get down deep into this thing. And you're going to learn so much about this, how it all works from the very beginning, the history and all of it. We're going to be announcing that soon. Okay. Alma has a question here. Thank you, Alma, for your question. It says, what is your rate for helping with your program? That is a great question. Alma, can I answer it this way? So if the bank is going to charge $163,000. Okay. They're going to charge $163,000. They're going to end up paying $41,638. I'm going to be saving them $122,000. So let me ask you, how much would my rate have to be for you not to save $122,000? Oh my goodness. Listen, when compared to how much money you're saving, our rate is very, very small. And it depends on how much I'm doing for you. Now, this family here only had $390,000 in debt. Okay. This one, all right, let me pull this up. Nope, that's not what I want. Get that off the screen. Okay. This one has over $1 million. Okay. This family with, let me get rid of this too. Now I want to keep that for later. Okay. So they have $1 million in debt. This one has only $416,000. This family's investment in the program is less than this family's investment in the program right here. Okay, let me put it side by side. Okay, so it matters what we're doing for you. And we have a system that we put together for you individually. So this family needs more of our services than the other family. But to get the savings report is free. All right. And for now, we're going to keep that free so that you can know what's going on. All right. But know this, whatever your investment is for the program, you're going to get at least 10 times return in interest savings. So who really pays for the program? Is it you? Or is it the money the banks are no longer going to receive? That makes this makes this so sweet. Because you signed up to pay all this money in the first place, and now you don't have to. Let me go back to this example. I hope that helps. Okay. Once you do the savings report and we go over the savings report for you, and then we put together a system. That's when you can know what your investment is, but you can contrast the investment with how much interest you're no longer going to pay. And believe me, it's well worth it. All right. So here's what we're looking at. She says, thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. So watch this, ladies and gentlemen. 390,000. Okay. And let me show you, that's a 75% interest reduction. We saved them 75%, 122. Okay. It's crawling across the screen. If you want to know more about this, go to ceodon.com. Save my information. Okay. Save my information into your cell phone. And also click on the button that says get a savings and earnings report. This is my digital business card with a lot of information on there. Okay. And click on the button that says get a savings and earnings report. Put that information in today and know the month, day, and year you could be debt free and how much interest you could save. One of my assistants will give you a call to confirm that data. And once you find out what your results are going to be, they will set up a meeting with you and me, and we'll go over it together. That's right. You'll get me right in person. Okay. So let's do this. Let's do it. Okay. So let's cut this down to 64% and save 75%. And instead of 27 years to pay off, they're going to be paid off in 7.6 years with the same budget without sacrificing lifestyle, meaning they can live well while they're doing it. Okay. There's no eating beans and rice. There's no cutting up of the credit cards. There's no driving a 20-year-old car. There's no telling your kids that you can't do this or you can't have that. No, none of that. You want to live well. If somebody's going to cut back on something, let it be the bank, because they're overcharging us in the first place. All right. So let me take a look at this one here. Okay. This one has, believe it or not, they were trying a system called velocity banking, and it got away from them. They have 12 credit cards for a total of $200,000 in credit card debt. Just the credit card debt is $200,000. They have 2 mortgages at $634,000. They have 3 other loans for a total of $197,000. When you add it all up, it's $1,033,000. By working with us, instead of paying $692,000 in interest, they're only going to pay $179,954. That would mean that's their effective interest rate is 1.1%. By the time we get through with it, they're saving over $500,000 in interest they'll never have to pay. That's a 74% reduction in interest cost. Folks, it's about interest cost. It has never been about interest rate. Okay. We just learned today that no matter what side of town you're on, the percentage and interest on these loans is going to be the same, whether it's a $200,000 mortgage at 7% or it's a $500,000 or $700,000 mortgage at 7%. The bank treats the percentages the same. They're both using 12 cents out of every dollar to pay their mortgage. Isn't that crazy? Is that the first time you've ever seen it? Listen, it was shocking to me. And we just put this example together yesterday for this show. It is important for everybody to realize what's going on behind the scenes. What is the psychological trap that we're in? How are we taught to look at our money? The only thing that you need to realize, folks, is this. There is a way for you not to pay all of that money in interest and invest it for yourself, because it's not the money that you pay extra pay in interest that's the real crime. The real crime is the generational wealth that your family is being robbed of. Look at this. If they didn't pay all of this interest, we're going to show them how, when they were supposed to be out of debt, they could have an additional $4,211,000 in their investments if they don't give that interest money to the bank. Saving $500,000. We're going to show them how to invest that money. And listen, this is only 1% return on your money. You can get that from a CD practically if you have $500,000 in it. Listen, this is only 1% return on their money, ladies and gentlemen. $4,211,000. And all they're not, what they're not doing is giving the bank $500,000 in extra interest they don't need to pay. So what if they were making the national average, which is like between 5 and 7% on their money? Oh my goodness. Now we're talking about compound interest on the money that used to go to the bank. Let's stop letting the banks rob us through not understanding what they're doing. Okay? Let's take a look at this one. Now, even this family who's saving only $122,000, they can turn that into $1.3 million and be out of debt in 7.6 years. They can take that extra interest and invest it. That money they're no longer giving to the bank, and over 27 years turn it into 1.3 million, and that's at a 1% return on their money. What if they got 6 or 7%? What about this one? Here's a family. This is I remember this one. This lady recently divorced, didn't want to live in an apartment, got a small house for her and her children, and it was let's see, she owed $237,000. She was supposed to pay $161,000. When we met her, she had already she was down to 28.8 years left on her mortgage. We're going to show her how she, even with one income, she can still live well, have fun with her family, and not pay $161,000 in interest, but only pay out about $70,000, saving that she's going to save $98,000. She no longer has to pay the bank. She's going to be out of debt in 10.3 years. And she could use the money that she's no longer giving to the bank and turn it into $611,000 to help build generational wealth for her and her family. Folks, this is what we're talking about. We are being turned into a natural resource that the banking system has got us to look away from what we're actually doing, taking our labor, taking our ideas, taking our sweat, taking our work ethic, turning it into cash, and we're spending it at the company store, making them rich. That is what's happening. So why are we doing that? Because we have been taught to do it, and we don't have to do it any longer. So folks, I want to, I'm about ready to get out of here. We're going to be coming back all season long. This is season 5 of P.I.L.L Method Live. We're going to be coming back all season long, giving you nuggets just like this and showing you how you can use AI. Next week, we're going to be getting into more of the AI, how the artificial intelligence is actually breaking this all down, okay, to show you. And we'll be able to show you some things like if I have, I got a perfect example, and we'll go over this next week. Somebody called me and said, I'm a little behind on my mortgage, and the mortgage company offered me a modification, and they want to modify my loan to 40 years. Let me show you next week. Come back next week, Wednesday, same time, okay? And I'll show you how this young lady is going to be better off having her mortgage modified to 40 years even though she's been in her mortgage 17 years already. I know it sounds crazy, but folks, we have not been taught the right way when it comes to our money. And we're going to be right here and show you how, and I'll be able to show you the numbers in our system, how a 40-year loan is actually going to help her get out of debt cheaper and faster if she modifies to the 40-year loan than trying to catch up on her 30-year loan, which she has 17 years in already. So come back for that. I want to share something with you before we get out of here, though. Okay. Let me do this because, you know, you got to play a commercial every now and then. So we're going to play a little bit of a commercial here. Okay. And let's play this, and then we're going to be out of here for today. So watch this, everybody. How many want to know how to pay off all of your debt in an average of 7 to 9 years? You can do all of this without refinancing, without change to your budget, without sacrificing lifestyle.
Me and my husband do the P.I.L.L method, and last year we were able to pay down $33,000 on our mortgage without feeling like we were poor. We still did tons of entertaining things and enjoyed our family.
You don't have to eat beans and rice every day. You don't have to cut up your credit cards. You don't have to drive a 30-year-old car. You don't have to sell pizzas at night to pay off your mortgage. All you need to do is pay the bank less interest. That's what we're talking about today. Here is what P.I.L.L method stands for: prepayment of principal, isolation of principal amounts, leverage, and liquidity. You understand it? You have a way of getting out of debt more efficiently. The interest rate you're quoted is not the interest rate you pay. You think you're buying a $500,000 home. The true cost of that home is what? $758,000. Total interest paid as a percentage of principal, 51.777%. That's what's going on with this loan. The ability to read and defeat an amortization schedule is not taught at any level of financial education. I need you to understand the power of a penny. You will not hear what I'm talking about from Dave Ramsey. Do you know why? Because I own the copyright. I literally wrote the book.
But Don has some valuable information that can contribute to the quality of a person's life. And it only costs you a few dollars. It's his book. Why not get that?
I'm going to go through the P.I.L.L method myself with some of my investment properties. So I'm going to link up with Don, and then I'm going to sit down with him, show him my investment portfolio, and see how I can eliminate interest.
Okay, folks, that's it for this week. I want to thank you for being here this week. We're going to be back next week with more truth, with more information, and how AI is going to change the world of finance. You think the AI is huge out in the world and helping in all other places? We're the only place in the world right now where we're using AI to beat the bank at their own game. You want to come back next week, all right? We'll see you then. Thank you very much for being here. Oh, I wanted to get, oh man, I want to put this on the screen. I want to get this off. Okay, there we go. All right, so I'll come back next week so that we can get into this deeper and understand more. And keep in mind, folks, I'm going to be talking about this more and more. We're putting together a 5-day challenge where you'll be able to be with me for 5 whole days, getting instructions for 5 days on knowing how all of this works from soup to nuts, from beginning to end, how it all got started, where we are now, and how we're going to fix it here at P.I.L.L Method International. Thank you again, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye now.